to Myers Metal Detectors, located in sunny Tampa, Florida, where we sell nothing but fun and adventures, treasure hunting gear, and anything you can imagine for metal detecting. Give us a call, 813-237-1939. Happy hunting and dig deeper.
Live from sunny Florida, it's Treasure Talk.
You're live.
Well, hello, friends. It's Phil Myers here from Myers Metal Detectors, and my good friend Jeff is here with me, and it's another Treasure Talk show. So let me go ahead and get this disclaimer going, and we'll get the show started. Today's show is brought to you by your friends at Myers Metal Detectors, where we not only sell fun, but we sell adventure, and views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on Treasure Talk by the guests and the members belong solely to the guests and members and not necessarily to Phil Myers, Jocelyn Myers, Jeff Monin, or Myers Metal Detectors. And the purpose of Treasure Talk is to promote the hobby of metal detecting, treasure hunting, and to educate our members in a fun and exciting, informative manner. And we've got a great guest today, so we can educate them, Jeff.
Yeah, we can. Everybody ought to know the guest today. He's a barn burner. He has found more stuff than you and I combined, I think, and has got more detectors. Unfortunately, he can't be in his war room tonight. He had to go over to the west coast of Canada, so he's over there in the tropics of Canada, we'll call it, and. But he's going to be join us tonight, and we're going to talk detectors, detecting, the upcoming, what's the hottest detectors coming out and the companies to watch and anything and everything, treasure hunting technique, water hunting, and everything. So I think what I will do right now is introduce to you Clive Clynick in the house. We're going to bring him on now. Here comes Clive.
There you are. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. Welcome.
I get the middle of the screen here. There we go.
There you go.
That's sort of orderly. There we go. Hi, guys.
So you're over in Vancouver today then, right?
I am, yes. Actually on the island Saanich, a place called Saanich. Very beautiful here.
Okay, cool. And the weather's a lot warmer than where you normally live at?
Sure, I'm from Toronto. Yes.
Okay.
It's beautiful here, yeah. Sunny day.
Well, we're going to get started with questions, and Jocelyn, today we didn't put out a question sheet, so when you get them, just flag them for me and hand them to me. And let's get rolling. So I got some of your books. So we placed it. We had the right placing in the shop, didn't we, Clive?
I hope so, as long as it's at the front. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, covering Gary Drayden's book.
That's what
And his
that's right.
cribbing spike that we have on the front counter. And a lot of people see that and think that's real, but truth be told, one of my customers made it for me.
Is there gold on
Hey, we'll get started on some questions already. Michael Boyles was asking, is there gold hunting in the area where you're at?
Actually, there is a little further up north, I mean, it's a funny thing. It's like Rick Kemp talks about Gold Valley where there is no gold, but further up there actually is quite a lot. And I've in the 80s and 90s, I've seen pictures of guys that were going in there with when the SD series just came out, the Mine Lab. Quite technical machines. They were just finding in the old tailing piles, fist-sized nuggets and just dozens of them basically with the new technology. But down here, this is sort of, I'm 2 hours from Vancouver, so it's,
Yeah. All righty. Well, it's like a little feedback, huh? You hear that, Jeff?
Yeah, I hear it a little bit. You got a little bit of feedback.
Maybe I got my sound
a little bit.
Let me turn my volume down. I'm hoping that will help there.
So
Is
I
that
think,
better?
yeah,
Testing.
Yep.
We're
good.
Good. Okay.
All right, Clive. So what is your latest book that you have out?
That's a good question. I'd have to think about that. No, my last book was on the Natka Macro Amphibio Multi, a very powerful little machine. I've actually brought mine out here with me in case I do have a chance to do some hunting. It's just it's a detector that I just love, and that sort of motivated me to write a book on it more than the idea that I was going to sell lots of books. But I just like the machine, so I decided to do something about it. It's a great machine to learn on, and it's a detector that'll take you as far as you want to go in the hobby. Goes in the water, super powerful, great modes, great features. I mean, I could go on.
Yeah.
I was going to bring mine out and just hold it up. Not much point. Look at it. But it's just a very well made and very sturdily built detector. That's a great machine for somebody who wants to learn the hobby on, or somebody coming from the simplex. It has similar audio, but it's much more powerful and has some great features. The Amphibio does. It's like the simplex is the starter. If you like what you see, go to the Amphibio for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the Amphibio is a good detector.
do you have a simplex yourself?
I do have a simplex as well. Yes, I like that. I mean, all I can say is if they made beginner machines like that when I was entering into the hobby, it would have been insane. I would just have buckets of stuff. But the quality and what talk about bang for the buck. A machine like that goes in the water. Another thing I like about both these detectors is that you can pair the pinpointer. And when you switch the pinpointer off, the machine switches off. The machine audio goes off, and you're searching with the pinpointer. It's a very nice feature.
Yeah. The best question would be just to ask Clive, what detector doesn't he have?
Uh,
Well, the simplex has been pretty popular. It's not as popular as I thought it would be in my area. I don't know why that is, but I know Naka is coming out with some new products, and we're going to have them on the show coming up. How long before Dalika is going to be on?
Dalik is going to be on Memorial Day, May 31st.
Okay.
And
So
then Pete and Chris are going to be on in July.
yeah, and they've been talking about a multi-frequency,
mhm.
the simultaneous unit, and that would help us here, on the beaches. I think it would do better than a single frequency. Although I know people who use their products on the beach. Okay. No, it's not coming through on my computer. My wife was just telling me I'm getting a phone call. Luckily, it's not coming through on the computer. Sometimes that happens, and I don't know how to turn it off on the computer because my iPhone somehow is linked to my Mac computer. But anyway, yeah, I think the simplex or the multi-frequency one they're talking about coming out would, as long as it's priced similar to other products, it ought to be a hot seller.
Certainly.
And now, have you used the simplex around saltwater?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. And I would say that I do think that a multi-frequency platform would add to the performance obviously add to the performance of any single frequency machine around saltwater, particularly fast salt. When you're actually working in the surge. I mean, a lot of machines struggle with that. That's all I'll say. And I just know that the new product from Natka Macro, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this, and particularly the saltwater performance. I think it will just sort of complete their product line. And the other things that they bring to a detector will really be enhanced with that addition to the tech.
Oh yeah, I think they're a good company. I think they're relatively new. I don't know a whole lot about them. I just started carrying them a couple of years ago. So, um,
Well, I think they've been around a while, Phil. It's just, I remember 3, 4 years ago, people were going, oh, well, not, it's that long one, and it's heavy and this and that. And then they started, really listening to the detecting community and
Right.
people that were testing. And now I tell you what, for my money, Nocta is one to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
Um,
So, you know,
you know,
a lot of people just getting into hobby buy that simplex, and for them, for entry level detector, it's kind of hard to be beat for $339 with wireless headphones. And it's waterproof. So,
yeah,
any thoughts?
That's true.
Any
It's a
thoughts?
great value. It's a great value and a very powerful little detector, to learn on. And it's versatile. It's got a relic mode for iron infested environments. I mean, it's a world class product for that price. It's an exceptionally good value.
Yeah. You haven't written a book for that one, have you?
No, I haven't, and I'd been asked about whether or not I was going to. I also have the sense, though, that it's such an entry level detector that I'm not sure that category of hunter. I mean, I know a lot of top hunters who keep it as a backup, but that are really interested in a book. I mean, you're the one who said to me yourself, Phil, that most people who buy a metal detector don't even read the manual. Do you remember saying that to me? Yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
That's you. That stayed in my pea-sized brain, and I apply that to trying to give a value in what I produce, and to select a product that people are going to be interested in enough interested in really developing to the top level of using that detector to buy a book,
Yeah.
So
If the people who buy the books become more successful because they read and learn about their detectors, and they're probably the few that read the manual too. So they just want an edge by reading the book. And I'm just a guy who likes to read, so I read all of them. And I'm amazed because I was reading in your book on the Equinox that you said when it first came out you had problems with it in fast moving salt.
Well, certainly, I mean, it's a detector that the audio takes some getting used to because for anybody that's come into the hobby years ago and is used to this blam whites type audio,
Right.
that's, most detectors sound like that. But, this multi IQ and the kind of sophisticated processing of the Equinox, it gives the signal tone this almost inverse quality. This kind of slow delay a quality to it that really takes some getting used to. And, I mean, I found that when it's in fast salt, it sounds muted. And it takes a lot of getting used to being able to hear how it's performing and to tune it appropriately, and to tune it using the controls in unison, the sensitivity, or I could call it the gain, the recovery speed, and the bias, and maybe even a few other things to affect what I call signal balancing, or what was taught to me as signal balancing. That might even involve running a tone break a little higher than zero to stop the seabed and the fast salt water from dominating the signal, dragging everything down into the below zero range, or even using a little bit of discriminate to just get that clean bottom tone break and be able to use more gain based with that. I mean, that's sort of a little bit involved. Just quick and dirty description of signal balancing, but it took me a while to learn some of these techniques, and I mean. I don't consider myself to be an expert. When I have a problem, I go and look for an expert, so I can't be one myself. The way I say it is, I'm just a fellow student. Sometimes I'm letting somebody copy over my shoulder, the new guy. Sometimes I'm the one copying, so I go out to my contacts, and I go out on Facebook and see people who are having good success with the Equinox in salt water, and I found quite a few of them and said, "How are you doing this? What kind of settings? What kind of tuning choices?" And that's how I developed some of the methods that have worked really well for me with the Equinox.
Yeah. Well, going back to that one thing we're talking about, with the manuals. One thing I think that a lot of people don't do, if they have to download the manual or go online to read it, they're not going to do that. The thing that I liked about Nocta, and then even like with Fisher, I believe, they include the paper manual with
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and to me, that makes really good sense. Yeah, it may cost a few more cents for them to do that, but the people are going to take that with them when they go in the field, I think, and they're going to learn it a little bit better. It just makes good sense to me.
Yeah,
Not everybody's going to, lives on their phone, especially old geezers like me. And you want to take the manual with you so you can refer to it as you learn your detector.
that is so true. Some of the detector brands don't print you, give you a printed manual. The ones that do, I think that's exactly true. I love a paper manual in my hand. I won't read it on the phone, so I end up printing it out myself. So that is really true. Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about, the fast moving salts with the Equinox, I guess unfortunate because here in Tampa and St. Pete, most of the time the salt's not moving real fast. Or if it is, I don't want to be hunting in fast moving salt. So um,
Mm-hmm.
that's just interesting, your thoughts on that. And Jocelyn, you said you had a comment?
Well, everybody loves the show. Mark Paddock says, nice talking to you Saturday. Looking forward to his order.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yes. Let me go ahead and start reading some questions here. Uh, Okay, this is a good one from Steve Kunder. He's saying, "How does Clive determine which detector to use?"
I
That's
knew that was coming. I've been asked that before, and there's actually a term for it. We call it detector paralysis.
Did I lose some sound?
Yeah, I lost Clive's sound.
Come back, Clyde.
We've lost your sound, Clive.
You've got some notes, right, honey?
I can't hear him, Jeff. Does he need to sign?
Mark Paddock says
If you if you can if you can hear us, Clive, do you want him to sign back on?
Yeah, maybe I'll send you. You still got the link, Clive, so try signing back on. We just lost your sound.
We can't hear you.
I think you and Jeff need to sing.
We're not singing.
Oh,
Clive, sign back on if you can, because we've lost total sound to you, buddy.
let's see. Let's bring him back in now and see what. Okay, so Clive, you got any sound now? Nope, no sound.
Well, he'll be back. You guys better go on. Answer those questions.
Send him a new link, Jeff, if you
We'll
can.
send you a new link, Clive.
We just sent you a new link.
Answer the questions.
Alrighty, well, while Clive is out there, we'll just do a little housekeeping, Jeff. And I wanted to say so long to TJ Payton, who was a member here. Also, he had just joined WSAS, the Tampa Metal Detecting Club, before the COVID thing hit. So a lot of the members don't really know him, but he had passed, I guess, a day or two ago.
A young man.
And he's a young man, has a young child. So he doesn't need prayers from us because he's in the streets of gold, but his family, I'm sure, does. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And Jeff, you had somebody else too.
Yeah. Let's see if we got Clive back. You got sound, Clive?
Testing.
Okay.
You're
All
good.
right.
While we were doing
It
this,
doesn't make any sense, but
yeah,
Okay.
we were just doing a little housekeeping while we were waiting for you to come back.
good. Glad we
Another
got it
good
fixed.
friend is Missouri Mike. Missouri Mike just had another stroke. He's had one before, and he got back out detecting, and he just had one the other day. And from what I understand, he's doing a little better. and he's coming back. And so we want to wish everybody, wish Missouri Mike recovery and send prayers out. And while we're doing that, we'll do a happy birthday to Dwight Cohen from Knock the Macro. Happy birthday, Dwight.
Yeah, hey,
Okay, now let's get back into the meat of it, Clive. We got you.
all right, so back to the question, which detector to use?
Yes, well, it's what's called, it can be very, very difficult. And when you have, it's almost like if you control the menu, you control the choices. And when you have too many items on the menu, it's a lot harder to choose. So, I mean, I have maybe a dozen, 15 detectors on hand at a time because they all do different things. And ideally, you'd want to look at the site and say, this is exactly what I need. But sometimes you're trying to accomplish multiple things, I mean, I divide those sort of metrics into depth, accuracy, and coverage, basically, and sometimes you need all three, in very, very difficult places. You need to be accurate, going deeper than anybody else who's hunting there, and you need to cover a lot of ground. And so it can be very difficult to choose sometimes, that's for sure,
Yeah, and you have your war room, quite a few detectors in it.
Quite a few.
Yeah, I had a question off YouTube from Mark Fiorella. He wants to know what's your feelings on threshold.
That's a good question, Mark. I mean, years ago, when I was learning to use the Sovereign in all metal mode with the Watt coil, I learned from a gentleman named B.B. Saylor on exactly how to tune this detector. And this threshold was the most important of all the tuning adjustments that you'd be making, because it would allow you, a proper threshold would allow you to hear the deep signals. And the way this guy showed me was I was finding dimes at 20 inches with the Sovereign, in packed sand. And the way of doing it, it was like somebody asked me in my Sovereign book, or the question was, how long does it take to set the threshold on a 2-hour hunt? And the answer was not more than 2 hours. So you're continually fiddling with it. And, it's one of the adjustments that you would be, when you get a faint signal, you would adjust the threshold by using that signal to see if you can make it louder or quieter, and it's the same with sensitivity or gain. When you get a faint signal, you can work on your signal balancing for that site by adjusting to see if you can make that faint signal louder or quieter,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's something I really emphasize strongly in my third Equinox book, is how to test on the fly, how to just use basic experimental design by sort of what you call throwing a monkey wrench into a set of parameters. And does it help or does it hurt? Does it help the signal? Does it improve the stability or whatever you're trying to accomplish there? I mean, it's all about testing with any of these detector tuning challenges.
Yeah, Clive, I got a question to kind of go along with the threshold. I always used it, and I use it on my Knox. But I found a lot of targets with the Excalibur simply with an interruption in the threshold, and I've done that with the Equinox too. So to me, the threshold is just, it's really a dynamic tool to use. Don't you think that, Phil?
Absolutely. I like the threshold on my Excalibur also, and the Nox too. I came from a PI background, so threshold I was used to. On my Tesoro Sanchark and my dual field, I was used to running the threshold and listening for changes in that, which were a really deep target. And with the Excalibur 2, do you run your threshold in all metal mode on that, Clive?
That's a good question. One of the top hunters in Florida, that was in Florida a few years back, if I may call him that, a gentleman who goes by the handle of Mr. Goldmaster. He taught me a lot about listening for these returning signals. And there's been quite a good video on how to do this circulating on some of the Facebook groups, Jersey a Facebook group. And, this is a real skill. And this is something that Terry Shannon talks about a lot too, is covering ground in Terry's case by listening for these threshold breaks and then examining them rather than listening for a full on tone, and this is, I have to say, these guys are at a skill level with the Excalibur that's beyond me. I know this detector pretty well. I've got 3 book titles out on it, but at the same time, this is particularly in salt water, listening for returning signals, and I've got a lot to learn in that. I've written about it in my book, but as far as actually using that, I've got a lot to learn.
Yeah, I was going to say the all metal mode. I hunt in the all metal mode and listen with the threshold. You'll hear faint changes in it, be real deep tones, and I'll switch over and at the modification so I can just hit the button and put it into discriminant mode, and you won't get any target response at all. So that target is out of the range of the discriminant mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I have people argue with me and say, well, this detectorist who's famous says hunt in the discriminant mode all the time. And I said, well, I don't do that because I want to hear the real deep targets because I'm the last guy to the beach. And if I want to find gold, I better dig the deep stuff.
Sure. And can I just respond to that? With a pulse, what a pulse will do for you is it will tell you when you're in the areas of interference, like particularly where you've got a steep incline or hills or mixed composition on the seabed, and you'll hear a pulse cutting out, and that tells you to slow right down and let the machine process properly. And that's how I compete with a lot of top pros in the Caribbean, because they're using VLFs, and those are detectors that lose threshold. That don't lose threshold, but they lose targets, if that makes any sense. What I'm trying to say is they compensate, same as the Equinox. It compensates extremely well to keep a smooth threshold, but at the same time, it's not giving you any indication that you should be slowing down or that you're in extremely bad ground or high interference zones. So that's how I compete with top pros, is by hunting these interference zones more thoroughly than they do, and slowing down and getting more depth. This is what pulse hunting teaches you. And I've often said that to use a detector like the Equinox or the Amphibio to run a pulse for a while is the best training you can get, because it not only teaches you to look for the other metrics of the signal, the size, how it sounds in context, in relation to the strata, how all the features of the signal add up, what I call the in-keeping method, the size, the shape, the strength, the distance from the coil, and when you begin to look for all the features of a signal like that, your accuracy it takes a quantum leap, because you're using one signal feature to confirm the others. Like you're always looking for anything that's out of whack, and that tells you, this target's too weak to be anything of value. This target's the depth doesn't add up. You're looking for sets of signal characteristics, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to go ahead and go down my list of questions here. And Crystal Jensers asked, do you dig anything under 20 with the simplex?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. This is another amazing thing about I use the Amphibio more than I do the simplex, but I know that both of these detectors have a very large iron range, and that is the below 20. In the 20s, you're in the foils. I know for sure with the Amphibio, you've got about a 10-digit range of foils, and then down below that, you've got about a 15, 20-digit range of iron. So, That is a very difficult question. And this is the kind of testing that I do. It's a shame I'm not in the war room because I could show you my testing kit and you'll see that I've got all different kinds of foils. I've got different sizes of spikes because if you really want to be accurate with finding gold, the idea is to learn to mediate that first line in between iron and ground and foils. And, when you get good with the detector, you learn to recognize anything that's jumping up high enough, and at the same time, you learn to recognize anything that's really connected to the ground, like the detector is seeing right through the target and reading the ground, the below zero range. And that tells you that it's something extremely weak, whereas gold is a great conductor and it's always going to leap up a little bit, So I'm not exactly answering your question that well, but I would say that, with chains and small, very tiny earrings, you're going to get responses that straddle the iron range, And this is a thing. This is something that only testing can tell you, with specific targets, chains, bracelets, very small gold,
Yeah.
You know what I think makes a good tester that straddles the iron range is a hairpin. Because when you recognize where a hairpin's coming in, anything that's higher than that, it tells you what's what, And as far as gold is concerned, I used to use those little tension bandage clasps, little aluminum tension bandage clasps, one of those folded over in half. That makes a great gold tester because anything below that is going to be a very dense foil. Anything above that is like nickel gold range. This is the way to get more accurate with the detectors, to find those benchmarks, like a Heineken cap, for example. That's a cap with a bottle cap with a lot of aluminum in it. So it's like what I call a fence sitter target. This is the way to learn accuracy with any detector. You find those fence sitter targets and test those, because a Heineken cap, it's got some steel to take going down into the iron range, and it's got some aluminum going up into the non-ferrous range. So when you learn how your detector is responding to those fence sitter targets, your accuracy takes a quantum leap.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let me get back to my questions. The next question is from, if I can read my wife's handwriting. What is the best way to neutralize hot rocks in black sand, water sand with the NOx?
Let me see.
Is that what you had?
It's Tom Becker.
From Tom Becker. Did you hear me, Clive?
Yes, I can. Hi, Tom. Thanks for your question. I think the Equinox is a very good detector in black sand, and I hate to say it, but it's better than the CTX. It just seems to be processing really well. You have that fidelity of adjusting the recovery speed. Black sand is the most challenging environment you can get. And, with a detector that you would be using in all metal, like one of my favorite beach machines is a CZ5, and you put it in all metal. And there's a ton to be learned this way too, is you just look for anything that's consistent, where the black sand is just a random signal. You look for anything that spikes and hits with a narrow range, rather than something that the detector is tuning out, this is what a bias control does, really, is a bias control. It gives you a broken muted response on alloys, and iron is the most diverse alloy you can have. And so black sand is sort of a low-level iron. It's almost like you're hunting on a sheet of iron, and the idea is to sort of look for ways to compensate that, so that anything that's less alloyed stands out. Like, this is why I love the F2 upgrade. When I say that, I mean the F2 bias upgrade. And because when you go up to the top range of that feature, like 7 or 8 even, this detector is doing something that no other detector does. And what it's doing is it's knocking out some very complex alloys. Up at 8, it's knocking out aluminum slag. No detector does that. Down at 7, it's breaking up on these caps because these caps are a little brass, a little aluminum, a little steel. And you're hearing that. And the way to learn to hear that is to try running the Equinox in, this is a black sand mode. Try running it in gold 2. And you're going to be able to learn to hear the inconsistent from the consistent. That's the key, And I mean, more generally, the problem that I see a lot of hunters having and trying to learn to be accurate, but they don't know their basic signal types. And the most basic signal type separation is scattered, diverse iron signal from single, consistent non-ferrous. And learning with the gold 2 mode, you can hear that beautifully on these caps because they break up. Like I add in a little bit of discriminate at the bottom as a learner mode so that it's not a continuous tone. But when you learn to use the Equinox in gold 2 and hear alloys from clean metal, whoa, that's when my gold hunting in the worst possible sites just took off, because I was going into the places that even though there's just so many targets that nobody can hunt them accurately, and I got some great gold last year that way by just going in and listening for those clean extended tones that say, this is not a cap. This is something that's clean metal, and no detector will do that, which is what I like about the Equinox as a gold, a shoreline machine. And you see a lot of the sites that I hunt, people dig a bottle cap, they're not going to put it in their pouch. They pop it right back down in the hole, which I'm not even going to start I'm not even going to go there. It's like mark of a hacker. I hate to say it. I mean, we all put targets back in the water, but it's just like consistently, and you get this, what I call this boil down effect, where the whole site is boiled down. So like 99% of the targets are caps that somebody else has already been on, and you feel this little indentation in the sand, somebody else. So I can go into those areas though, and these guys are, but you see, this is my revenge. These guys are digging them again. They're going back and digging them again. I can sail right over, because I can hear them with using the gold 2. And when you get a little more practice using the F2 bias up at like 6 or 7, and as you get practice, you can run it lower because you can still hear those breaks. That's like when you use the cross sweep, you can still hear the signal type. You can hear that it's a different signal type than something that's coming up to the surface cleanly, whereas a cap is something that's half connected to the ground. So when you use the coil in different directions on it, you can expose you expose that inconsistency. It's not a singular consistent signal, So those basic signal types learning those will take you a long way,
Yeah. I run into some problems on the caps when they're wrapped in aluminum foil.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of
Yes.
me every time.
Especially when it's gold foil, you get that flash.
Yeah, that's what the Modelo's down here.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Modelo. Yeah, that's right.
Myself,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't put the caps on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Jeff, if you got any questions, you just jump right in, okay, buddy?
I'm fixing to jump in, buddy.
right.
Let's talk about another company. I think it's going to be a real upcomer. Been around a long time, but I think there's really good stuff coming from them. That's Fisher.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
That Impulse AQ, I haven't got my hands on it, but I've seen it a little bit. And we've got a thing set with Phil has for in July for have Fisher Days down at his shop in Tampa, where they're going to have the Impulse AQ and some of their other products that they're coming with. So let's talk Fisher. What do you think about Fisher?
Well, I was very fortunate to get hold of a Fisher AQ Limited quite early in the production run. I think I got the 4th one. And this is a very impressive detector. like the French engineer Alexandre Tartet that developed this detector did so over a very, very long period of time, and by looking at some of the most advanced and sophisticated circuits in the pulse induction industry, some of Eric Foster's designs, in particular the Aquastar and some of Eric's other circuits. And I mean, this is several hat sizes above mine, but it's a dual technology that allows them to examine the signal in some very complex ways. And so what you have, I mean, it's been talked about for a long time, but you do have a discriminating pulse here, and it's also a very deep discriminating pulse, and one that runs, pardon me, with considerable stability down at ranges that would be termed 7-8 USC, and this is it's not to say that it's extremely sensitive to small targets, and they are coming out with a land gold model, but this was explained to me by a friend of mine, Jimmy Pugh, who knows a lot about pulse induction. He made the Anchor Electronics Barracuda. That when you're running down at these low USC ranges, the signal is vibrating the ground. It's exciting the ground. I mean, when you use the machine, you understand this a little better because it might not sound like it's going deep. And it's the same as the Equinox. The Equinox doesn't sound like it's going deep, but then you dig something up 15 inches under, or with the Fisher Impulse AQ, we're talking in the 20s inch range, it's very, very surprising, and the initial run had a few bugs. The run time was short and a few things, and the production model is, from the sound of it, they've had us as a focus group and a forum on, Detector Prospect to look at some of these bugs, and they've really worked at addressing them. And I mean, as far as the pulse is concerned, this has the potential to be my main pulse for sure, because it's, I can see that it's got a ton of potential. And, with these circuits of Eric Foster's, this is such a sophisticated and clean pulse induction signal. I mean, I suppose somebody that's running like a MindLab GPZ or GPX would say, no, that's pretty well the standard of this level of pulse induction. But for a detector that you're taking in the water looking for treasure with, the signal is so clean that you can hear these irregularities. Like you can hear when something is alloyed or when something is carrying to the surface. And with a pulse that's termed what's called optimized, this is also the Anchor Electronic Barracuda. What's made Jim's machine so incredibly good is the optimization is so good. The cleanest signal that you hear, the signal that carries within a narrow, you could call it a narrow tube that carries to the surface really well. That's gold. The optimization is what really sets these detectors apart from anything else. So the Fisher Impulse AQ is the way of the future. It is just, I love my pulse induction machines. I mean, if one were to look at my picture there, you'd see there's two dual fields. There's two of Eric's machines, an AquaSearch and a CS6PI custom, several other pulses, three Barracudas. But the Impulse, it's looking like it's the flagship of the fleet, as they say, So
Well, they're coming with a multi-frequency too.
Yeah, I think they're going to bring out. They're working on a multi-frequency, probably similar to the other ones on the market right now. But they've always had multi-frequency for a long time. You have a CZ20, don't you?
Yes. Well, that's a slightly a simpler technique, technology. I mean, the CZ. I love the CZ5 as a beach machine, and it's what's called Fourier domain analysis of two signals, 5 and 15 kHz. And this is a very, very effective technology that penetrates black sand really well, is super stable in salt water, and these are amazing machines. I mean, people see me on the beach with this Fisher CZ5. They go, well, "What's with the antique?" But it's a great machine.
Well, Fisher's been around. I think they're the oldest U.S. Company. I think they've been around over 50 years. So
Hmm.
been around a while. Well, let me get back to some other questions here because I think our
Let's do
time is fleeting. Um, where does this one's from Mark Hoover? Where does Clive Clynick detect in the Caribbean? Any
Do you want me to draw you a map with like an X mark? Where do I detect in the Caribbean? Next, thank you for your question. Who's next?
so he,
I was going to say, ask me anything up to including long division, but I'm going to up to including long division and where I hunt in the Caribbean. Sorry, we
You hunt on
can't
the
give you that one.
beach. You hunt on the beach in the Caribbean.
Yeah,
oh,
it's like when I find something, they say, "Where'd you find it?" I say, "In the water with a metal detector."
yes,
That's right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right. Well, Jim Elkins has a question on the Equinox. What is the best mode to run on a heavy trash baseball field?
Trash baseball. Well, I like Park 2. I do a lot with Park 2. I mean, the other modes are for heavy ground, a lot of the ones that have the slower weightings. Park 2, I mean, especially if there's a possibility of chains and, small gold, Park 2, it has to be tamed down because it's a lively, high frequency weighted mode. But that's my standard inland mode. It's my standard mode for freshwater. I really like Park 2, but it because it's high frequency weighted, it gets a lot of these little foils. And this is, again, why it's so important to learn the signal types, learn your basics. Learn your basics to be able to tell when these signals are too weak to be of anything of value. I mean, I see so many. There's a saying, even a blind pig will find an acorn once in a while, and that seems to be the working principle that a lot of people want to operate on when really they're digging a lot of obvious garbage that simple basics would reveal to them obviously. I mean, if you can learn to mediate the low conductors and the stacking in the lower ranges that a mode like Park 2 has, that's when your accuracy is going to take off. So Park 2.
Park 2.
Park 2, you really want to get some punch out of it, use it in the horseshoe mode. And if you want a little clarity on your signals, use it on the 50 tones so that, when you hear something clean, it's not an alloy, it's not something really misshapen or wire or something. So, it's all about the accuracy, and that's basic skills and learning your signal types.
Yeah, and Clive, do you use the stock coil with your Equinox, or you use any different coils?
I use them both, I use them both. I've had great results with the stock coil in the Caribbean, and, in fresh water, maybe not in a high trash environment, but, I quite like the standard MindLab big coil, it swings through the water pretty well, and, I wouldn't say it's a ton deeper than the stock coil, but especially used with the horseshoe mode. And, it's all about the signal balancing, and I mean, this is when people have to all of a sudden they hit the wall and they realize they're not getting any more depth with a big coil. And the reason for that is they're not running a balanced signal. And that takes time to learn. That's like, it's not something that, people say, oh, what are your settings? It doesn't matter what your settings are. If you're not running a balanced signal, it doesn't matter what your settings are.
That's okay. So
But I've got the 15-inch coil tech on order. I'm just itching to get hold of that, right? So I'm hoping they'll come in here in Canada in another couple of weeks. So that'll be the new tester.
I'll just give the U.S. people who are on my list an update. I talked with the distributor today, and they have some on the way, but it's not a big order. So they're sending them to us piecemeal, one or two at a time. It's
Mm.
it's a little disappointing, having to wait, but I think it's going to be worth the wait. I'm looking forward to the 5x10 coil because I use the 6 a lot. And would you agree that the smaller coil, it's easier to hear the target and get more information when you're listening to whether it's a good or a bad target?
I would say so. And I mean, just having an adjustable recovery speed, to sort of custom tailor the audio of a machine for how much is in the ground. It's a huge deal what you can accomplish with that. I mean, just to be able to speed it up and also work with your sweep speed and to be able to just cherry pick. I mean, when I'm hunting for gold in the water, I run a notch. I want to knock out coins. I want to knock out anything above 24 from, say, 24 to 28. And I use that notch to hear if anything is bumping up against it. And if it's bumping up against 24, it's not gold. I'm probably going to keep going, and the small coil is just beautiful for that.
Okay, well, you've got the banner going, so I better let you take over, buddy.
Yeah, it was time for our giveaway, Clive. And Clive has been gracious enough. He's going to give away 2 books tonight.
Awesome.
So, and what we do is the names have been drawn with a random name picker on Facebook and YouTube. And I will call your name, and then you have 3 minutes. If you're watching on YouTube, you've got a text, and the numbers are down there along the crawler in the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on Facebook, you can Facebook Messenger or text Phil or myself, and you got 3 minutes. So,
One second, guys.
this is what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to call out 2 names. And the winners are Christy Rice and Maria Lozano. So you guys got 3 minutes to let us know that you're here and use your name, please. Not just I'm here because we don't know your number. So
Name
you got
and
3 minutes to text Facebook Messenger us with your name that you're here. If you don't, by 7:54, we're going to another one.
Awesome. And just if you weren't the winner of the book, we have them in stock at the shop. Clive has 3 of them for the Equinox now. This is the latest one, I believe.
It is.
And I just like that in your books, you emphasize listening to the quality of the signal because most people don't do that. They just see a number and they just dig instead of taking the time to hear it. And I think for especially beach hunting, I can see digging it all, but then you're digging a lot of trash. But when you're land hunting, it's very important for the quality of the signal and listening for the iron and all the other stuff in there. So,
and something else that people need to realize as far as with your books, they're not all about the equinox. You got how to be a shallow water hunter and techniques and stuff like that. So Maria Lozano is here. She wins 1. So
congratulations, Maria.
And you got a couple minutes yet. So you got 1 minute, Christy. If not, I'm going to call another name. So Phil will have those books in stock too. I think you've got 2 on water hunting, don't you, Clive?
Well, I mean, people get a detector and they think it's all about tuning the detector and learning the detector. But there's also the question of where, and basic equipment handling and how to travel with equipment and how to operate in the water, And I mean, I have several books on those kinds of methods and techniques that have, this is the hard stuff to learn, I mean, that's why I put in a post recently, this is the money, this is the money, and, I just thought I'd make mention of that, I've got, Water Hunting Secrets of the Pros too. I like to think that's the most advanced book that anybody's ever going to write on how to find gold at the shore. And, a couple of others, advanced shallow water metal detecting tips, tricks, and methods. Another one called Lessons from the Pros. This is the stuff I paid my dues to learn,
Yeah. Well, we
But
got to draw another name here. Clive, hate to interrupt you, but Christy Rice is not here. So, Tom Becker, if you're watching, get to us with your name, and you'll get a Clive book. So you got 3 minutes.
And I'm going to keep going on my list here because the questions keep coming in, Jeff. So while we're waiting for the winner, I'll just ask the next one. Allison Walker asks,
hey, Allie,
where's Clive's favorite place to detect? Any spots on his wish list?
Queen Allie. Well, I know Allie's got some permissions over in our province there that are on the list for sure. That's a good question. I mean, I probably shouldn't say any of my favorites because I don't want everybody crowding in, but I like some stuff in Northern Ontario, and I've had some great results. And we have a beach up there that's 27 miles, and it's got a lot of obscure little spots that don't get touched very much. And, I mean, it's like anything. As the technology gets better, you can open these places up, and I had some great luck with the equinox last year by using some of the methods that I've just described, using gold 2 and all kinds of stuff, So that's my answer, Allie. Hope you're good, love. Yeah.
All righty. Did you have a winner yet, Jeff? No?
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to go on to the next question. Jim Dardini, is there a way to settle down the knocks when you run up on a lot of interference?
Well,
Jeff, who did you call? I interrupt you one second.
I called Tom Becker.
Yes, he's here.
Okay, we're good.
We're good.
We're good.
Send me the addresses.
Okay, just let me tell you one thing. Y'all see the email at the bottom of the screen. Email me, please, not text. Email me your information, and I will get it to Clive, and he will send your book to you. Is that good with you, Clive?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so they email it to me. I will forward it to Clive, and we'll get you your prizes. Congratulations.
Sure, I'll give them a choice, or so. Make sure I can contact them so I can give them a choice as to what book they want.
Yep, get your name, address, phone number.
Yeah, or email, or they can look me up on Facebook, and we'll figure it out.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, Phil, ask away.
All right, so
Interference.
question about, is there a way to settle down the knocks when you run up on a lot of interference?
Sure. Well, there's different kinds of interference.